Hey everyone, you might be wondering, hey Will, why is there a 6 month gap between you posting videos and that gap started with you being in the hospital and you gave us little to no word on what was happening? That's a great question, and I'll maybe explain at the end of the video. I'm sorry. Before this one begins, it is worth prefacing that just recently, Rolling Stone dropped a new interview with Travis Scott where they just talk about all of his new ventures that he's going through, including a potential new album on the horizon this year. One that Travis has described himself as being like Rodeo, but on like a stadium level, trying to expand upon that. And I think because you've read the title of this video, you can imagine that I believe he has some work to do to get to that point. But it did feel worth prefacing the video with that new statement in mind, especially. Back in September of 2025, Travis Scott's Rodeo just turned 10 years old. And I feel mad old saying that out loud. Even though most attribute Astroworld to the moment where Travis Scott had finally made it as an artist and reached his peak, and despite the commercial success of Birds in the Trap sing McKnight, Rodeo was a moment that immediately started to stick out to people. I mean, how could it not? This Kanye West protege would release his debut album with features from Yeezy himself, The Weeknd, coming off of the incredibly successful Beat Behind the Madness, Juicy J, and Justin Bieber, and all narrated by T.I. to top it all off. Of course, you could say this about any major artist, but it's clear that we were not ready for how big of a star Travis would become. And it all really started with this one album. But the thing is, ever since Astroworld, the quality of Travis's music has been put into question. For many, Travis's past two projects post-Astroworld, such as Utopia and the recently released Jackboys 2 compilation album, have faced immense scrutiny. Now, these albums did well commercially, but in the eyes of many, those projects were moments that just came and went. Utopia did amazing numbers, had 3 immediately recognizable hit songs, but has more or less been forgotten nowadays. Jackboys 2 came out earlier in July of 2025, coming off the brewing rivalry between Travis and his former friend and collaborator Pusha T, and more so this time around, it really felt like that album just came and went. On top of the music, many have pointed out how much of Travis Scott has been corporatized. He's having these collabs with these big fashion brands that feel out of place. He's selling his own alcoholic seltzer. He's selling weed, and he pushes these costly album bundles that don't even get shipped on time. A lot of his work nowadays seems to be made purely for spectacle, but when it comes to the actual art at the base of all of that, a lot of us seem to be left unimpressed. 4x4, for example, is considered one of the worst performing number one songs in history, because the moment after it reached number one, it disappeared from the Billboard charts, like entirely. And look, the song was not offensively bad or anything, but it wasn't all that exciting either. It was evident that most of what made up those sales was the bundles he sold. Seeing these criticisms has made me think more and more about the direction that Travis's music has been going through over this past decade since Rodeo, and even to a degree the music industry at large. Even though we don't like acknowledging it, these artists and musicians are kind of a brand. But I feel like in Travis's pursuit of more business success, something that he's rapped about wanting to achieve countless times, the quality of his actual art, the actual music, has seemed to fall to the wayside. And what's more, when reflecting on Rodeo, which is now 10 years old, it hurts to say out loud, but it really feels like we're never going to get an album like that from Travis again. And not just that, given the core message of that album, I feel like Travis is somewhat betraying his older self with the direction he's going in nowadays. Look, I've talked about Mr. Scott on the channel before. There's one video in particular where I broke down Only One by him and Metro Whoa. Voice crack. There's one video in particular where I broke down Only One by him and Metro Boomin, but I've mainly only mentioned him in passing when discussing other artists, namely Kanye West, or Ye. If you've seen any of my older videos, you would also know that I own a copy of Rodeo and Astroworld on vinyl. I mentioned all of these things to say that this criticism is coming from someone who is a genuine fan of his music. Similar to Drake, but not to the same extent as I've detailed before, Travis's music has been with me through a lot of my formative years, which is why I feel decently equipped to discuss his music evolution now. But before I pessimistically rant about the future of music and blah blah blah, I feel it is important to take ourselves back to the Rodeo era, or I guess the days before Rodeo, one could say. Yes, thank you. I'll be here all night. Because we need to take a look at what made that album so special, and why I also believe that to this day, it is Travis's best project, hands down. And to also unfortunately point out how this album's very message seems to be lost on Travis in modern day. It's important to touch on the birth of Travis Scott, the artist, before we continue. His origin story is the foundation of the Rodeo album, and it's going to take a little minute, but sit tight. Born Jacques Bermon Webster II on April 30th, 1991 in his hometown of Houston, Texas, Jacques was born to his mother Wanda and his father Jacques Sr., who was an entrepreneur and soul musician himself, Jacques' grandfather even being a jazz composer as well. From birth, it's evident that a love for music was in his blood. Trav started learning to play some instruments in his childhood, mainly the drums and piano, getting his first drum set at age 3, and playing piano up until his teenage years because he, quote, wasn't getting any bitches. He's so real for that. He would live with his grandmother from ages 1 to 6 in South Park, a notoriously dangerous part of Houston, especially in the early 90s when he grew up. Jacques has since recalled a moment from his childhood seeing these junkies or unwell people in his city and having the immediate thought that he needed to get out of there. Unfortunately for him, he would, later moving to Missouri Heights with his parents, a more affluent area of Houston, where he would spend the rest of his childhood, and even gain his younger siblings, twins Jordan and Joshua. His parents really like those J names. In June of 2000, Travis has since stated that his experience living in the hood, even if it was for that short time, was enough to motivate him to work hard, as to never be put in that kind of position again. According to Jacques, he was fortunately a good student in school, which, if true, makes the story of his leaked college essay a lot more sketchy. This is a side tangent, by the way, but in 2024, during this big group buy for the Kanye West leak Can You Be, formerly known as Pressure, among a bunch of other leaked songs and files that came with that group buy, was an apparent college essay that Travis wrote on Kanye's label, Good Music. And oh boy is it. It's something. It could be made by AI, someone could have easily lied about it, but still, it's just so interesting. And look, I'm not trying to be snobby, but as someone who is currently actively attending college and basically writes essays for fun, that's what this channel is, just off the first 3 sentences, I'm immediately skeptical that this is a real academic essay, because I don't think I could get away with something like that in high school, let alone college. But hey, at the very least, it's at least leagues better than the bullshit that Samantha Fulnecki tried to pass through at Oklahoma University. Oh my God. Side tangent aside, Jacques got the opportunity to attend private elementary and middle schools, but opted to go public when it came time for high school. Travis has also since attributed his time in private school as another motivator for success, seeing all of his rich friends from private school live these lives of luxury that his parents were just shy of affording, as it appears they were more lower middle class. But this is where the musical origin story really begins. Jacques' journey as a proper musician started in the senior year of high school, as he was beginning to produce beats at age 16 and commenced rapping at age 17, finally adopting the name Travis Scott, except with that long-forgotten $sign for an S. His first known music venture would be a duo between him and his former friend Christopher Jones, his artist name being Chris Holloway, coming together to form The Graduates. Wonder where they got inspiration for that name from. They would drop music on their MySpace account, which they started in April of 2007. Now, if it isn't a bit obvious, Jacques has been a fan of Ye's since day one, with there even being a leaked Say You Will freestyle from The Graduates' debut and only self-titled EP, where he just straight up asks Ye to call him and drops his phone number mid-song.
Kanye, come get me, man. I'm right here, man. We're the graduates. Find us. We'll come to you. We want good music. My number is 713-553.
Part of me really admires that level of determination. Travis has since stated multiple times that his biggest inspirations as an artist were Kanye West and Kid Cudi, saying that the first Ye project he ever listened to was 808s and Heartbreak, and has also since admitted on record that Kid Cudi's music saved his life. Even in some of his early stuff, it is abundantly clear the influence that they had on him. Travis also since revealed on Jimmy Fallon that his artist name is a portmanteau of his Uncle Travis's first name and Kid Cudi's real legal first name, Scott. Travis would also have another musical duo endeavor with another not very original group named The Classmates, featuring him and his college friend Jason Williams, or OG Chess. starting in April of 2009, but it was also another short-lived endeavor as well, ending around 2011. During this same time, Travis would attend UT San Antonio and then later transfer to the University of Texas at Austin, going to college for a total of about 2 years before then following in the footsteps of his idol and dropping out in an effort to make music full-time. But unlike Ye, who had the reluctant yet full support of his late mother, Travis' musical ambitions were a constant fight between him and his parents, even dating back to high school. Travis even since recalled in a Complex interview moments where he and his father would get into proper, fist fights over Jacques' musical production. His dad going as far as to cut the power to his room when he was producing at times. When Jacques dropped out, he didn't initially tell his parents, and his mother kept sending him money to pay for college expenses, when in reality he was using that money for food, plane tickets, and studio time, and would secretly move to New York with a friend, going to the legendary Jackboys' studio to work on music. Eventually, though, his parents would catch wind, and his mom would cut him off, telling her son firmly that he needed to find his own path in life. He would later move to LA, being homeless for a decent amount of time, couch surfing between some of his friends' cribs, and even ending up sleeping in a friend's car for a short while too. But would fortunately catch the eye of Atlanta rap legend T.I. with one of the first ever independent Travis Scott songs, the self-produced Lights, (Lovesick). He made the song and music video in New York, and it started catching some traction on some online music blogs at the time, and T.I. took clear notice. Around this time, word must have gotten around about him as Travis's production would also start gaining him some sort of traction in the music industry, with multiple labels already offering to sign him as a producer. But his biggest break would come when Anthony Kilhofer, a producer heavily associated with Good Music, who happened to be his manager at the time, serendipitous timing and whatnot, would show Kanye some of Trav's work and would take immediate interest in him, being apparently enthralled by the Lights music video as well. Kanye was apparently so impressed, Anthony told Travis to come to New York immediately, as Kanye wanted to meet him. And after about a week back in New York, he was already producing on what would end up being Cruel Summer, the Good Music compilation tape, reportedly being given ideas from Ye and other Good Music artists and producers and being asked to expand upon them, leading to him being officially credited on the tracks The Morning and Sin City, where he's featured as an artist, and even helping score some of the Cruel Summer short film, a film that was exclusively premiered at the Cannes Film Festival back in 2012, but never came out in any kind of public fashion, as the movie was made with the clear intent to be displayed on 7 large screens. So obviously, not very conventional. After about a bit over 2 weeks working on this project, Trav would finally formally meet Kanye after only previously talking to him on the phone and seeing him in passing. And Ye would take a liking to him, asking Trav to hop on that aforementioned Sin City track that he produced. Between 2012 and 2013, Trav would continue his work with Ye, being mentored by him while honing his craft, officially signing with Good Music as a producer somewhere around late 2012. And then in the first half of 2013, when Trav would be in the middle of the Yeezus sessions, he would officially sign with T.I.'s Grand Hustle Records as a rapper in April of 2013. Jacques' dreams were finally starting to come into fruition. Now, normally if you've been on this channel before, this would probably be the time where I go album by album reviewing and ranking each project and its certain era as it pertains to Travis's story, but for the sake of this video, not being 42 hours and for me to focus on one main point, I'm primarily going to be focusing on Rodeo itself and then contrasting that with Travis's career in the present day, meaning that in this video in particular, I won't be discussing the eras of Pharoh, Days Before Rodeo, Birds in the Trap, Astroworld, and Utopia in immense detail. I will merely sum up the grand highlights of those eras as they relate to my main point here. So to keep this come up segment short and sweet, the Pharoh era became Travis's big break in the somewhat underground during the blog era. He was given immediate street cred, being known as the Kanye protege who was working on what would go on to be a highly critically acclaimed album. He was even fortunate enough to land a spot on the XXL freshman list for 2013, sharing the roster alongside acts like Logic, Schoolboy Q, Action Bronson, Joey Badass, and more. Pharoh also holds fan favorite deep cuts like Bands with Meek Mill, Hell of a Night, Quintana Part 1 with Wale, Upper Echelon with T.I. and 2 Chainz, and MIA. The project was slated to release on the iTunes store, but due to sample clearance issues, as is an issue with a lot of mixtapes, it would unfortunately keep it to just a free mixtape on SoundCloud, where it is to this very day, not even getting the treatment of the 10-year anniversary re-release in 2023. Still, Upper Echelon at the very least would be officially released as a purchasable single in April of 2013. Then, in 2014, we would have the Days Before Rodeo Era. I say era with quotation marks because, as the title suggests, it was mainly just a mixtape made in anticipation of Travis's debut album, which he had already announced the title of, Rodeo. The tape would be exclusively relegated to a free download as well, but would later see a 10-year anniversary re-release on streaming in 2024, only lacking T.I.'s verse on Quintana Part 2, as the two had an alleged falling out. Similar to Owl Pharoh, this project would receive one official single, that being Don't Play with Big Sean in 1975. This project held other cult classics like the aforementioned Quintana Part 2 with T.I., Backyard, Mamacita, Skyfall with Young Thug, and also Sloppy Toppy with the Migos and Pee Wee Longway. And anytime I think of that song, I immediately think of that one quote tweet of Travis and Quavo performing the song together. Quavo did what? Following the positive fan reception of this mixtape, we would later get Mamacita with Thugger and the late Rich Homie Quan as another official release single in December of 2014, along with an accompanying music video and a T.I. cameo. The buzz that Travis got from these early projects continued to boost his hype and the anticipation for that eventual debut commercial album. But now, I feel like I've adequately set the stage for Rodeo. Rodeo had obviously been getting teased over the past year, the largest teaser being, of course, its prequel mixtape. But Rodeo's promotion would pick up properly in January 2015, with the announcement of the Small Rodeo Tour in March of 2015, with Young Thug and Metro Boomin to support this coming album. The project would be teased multiple times over the first half of the year, but promotion would really heat up in June, when we would get the release of 3500 as an official single, this coming with Travis formally dropping the $sign from his name. And in that same month, we would also get the SoundCloud release of Antidote, with its single cover reading, Rodeo Soon, Sincerely, Travis. Both songs were great, but it was Antidote that became the instant summer hit. But more on that track later. Trav would officially announce Rodeo's release date on July 17, 2015, and would finally post the official and now legendary album cover on August 20th, 2015. And then, 2 weeks later, on September 4th, after the album would unfortunately get leaked on the 30th of August, Jacques Bermon Webster II would finally fulfill his dream and release his now iconic debut album, Rodeo. To preface the discussion of this album, I want to read this quote from Jacques during an interview with CR Fashion Book in January of 2015. It's like a Beyonce concert, he says. The carnival, the livestock, and the show are all parts of the event. I feel like that's how my life is. The carnival is like my imagination. It's the drive behind my vision. Even though I don't feel like I'm at a point where my shit is at an all-time high, we're working to get there. We are working to get to the level of where your magazine is and to stand on that level. The livestock show is the road to get to where I'm going. At this point, I'm riding a bull for just 8 seconds and it's hard as fuck, but we made it. The rodeo that Travis treks through on this album is an extended metaphor for his life as a musician on the cusp of achieving success. The album is narrated by his label head, T.I., and the project starts off with the intro track. I don't know if I can read that and not get this video demonetized, but something that rhymes with pornography. Quite the title for the intro song to your debut album, but hey man, it works. This is one of my favorite album openers of all time. I really wish that I could play more song snippets, but I like money, y'all. I'm sorry. These projects I have in mind, they're not going to pay themselves. T.I. introduces us to the world of Rodeo, taking place in a galaxy far, far away from ours, detailing the origin story of the one known as Jacques that turned to Scott, who made the bold choice to jump off his mama porch and rebel against the system, leading the stampede of lost souls, refusing to compromise his morals or his soul, and vows to live his life by his own rules. This intro establishes the powerful passion that Trav has had for his music since the very beginning. As T.I. states, Trav and his fellow lost souls aren't fully sure where they will end up, but know that no matter what, taking the decision to leave was the right choice. Ending the song letting us know that La Flame says to let your ambition carry you. Or more accurately, he acts as both an intro and an anthem for Rodeo, with Trav rapping about how it's go time, detailing those early aspirations to achieve that success. He is then followed up by Oh My Decide with Quavo, a top 10 Travis song easily. Here, we see that Travis has finally started achieving that success. On the first part, Oh My, Travis details his troubled come up. He recounts popping pills, taking part in lean, apparently selling crack, and even once more recounts his mother kicking him out of the house and cutting him off, before moving to LA, couch surfing, and finally making enough money to sustain himself. Enough money to buy his mom a home, one that she can't kick him out of. A major full circle moment. Then on part 2, this side, he and Quavo recount how they are on the better side of their misfortune, still reminiscing and having some nostalgia for their pasts, but happy with the success that they've gotten, leading well into the legendary 3500 with 2 Chainz and Future. On this upbeat banger inspired by an apparent $3,500 fur coat that Kim Kardashian bought for North, the trio uses this track to simply stunt, with Trav letting us know that now that he has the money to do so, he will take pleasure in using it how he sees fit. And kindly lets us know that he can't associate with broke, swagless people. I love being stunted on as a poor person. We then get wasted with Memphis legend Juicy J, with this song sampling Havin' Things 06 by the late Pimp C, a rapper who rose to prominence in the 90s as part of the duo UGK, Underground Kings, with Bun B, a duo that also originates from Texas. In this track, both Mr. J and Mr. Scott indulge in a bit of hedonism, but clearly to their detriment, with Trav even saying towards the end of his verse that he can't hold his liquor, this being a double entendre, as it also is a reference to Hold My Liquor from Yeezus. This track ends with our last bit of T.I. narration until the end of the album, with Tip briefly discussing the uglier side of this overindulgence, and how it could affect young Jacques as he navigates the rodeo, while still showing him sympathy and imploring us to do so as well. And to a degree, he has a point, because in the same spot, how could you judge? This then leads to one of Travis's most universally beloved and acclaimed songs, and one he admits is his personal favorite from the album, 90210, with alternative singer Casey Hill, a former Good Music signee. The song was trending a little bit ago, but for all the wrong reasons. Trav would apparently remove the intro ad-libs from model and DJ Chantel Jeffries from the track on Spotify, causing outrage among fans, before the mistake would then be rectified a few days later. And the call was probably for the best. The intro feels incredibly empty without her presence. The first part of the track has Travis discussing his time with a Valley girl. This girl, similarly to Jacques, left her hometown in pursuit of LA, only in her case, her main reason to staying is to indulge in the drugs and party scene of the city, with Trav being ready to satisfy their shared vices together. As the first part of the song reaches a thematic climax, we then reach that famous beat switch, sampling a part of the instrumental from Kanye West's Family Business. This section also famously becoming a meme. In this verse, Travis, potentially a bit more sobered up and thinking a bit more clearly, reflects once more on the success that he has started to achieve and how it's affected his life. His family is starting to finally support him after seeing the money he's bringing in. He feels like he's finally found meaning in life and is proudly shouting from the rooftops that he's made it. Like, it is obvious why this song is a fan favorite, and it definitely deserves that kind of recognition. Travis and Casey made something truly special with this song, and I hope that Casey continues to get the respect she deserves for contributing to what is genuinely a masterpiece. But side tangent, by the way, I saw Travis in 2023 during the Circus Maximus tour, and I've gotta say, I really hate how at every performance of that song, he blue balls us and doesn't do the second part. It's the best part of the song. Everyone knows that. Why would... Continuing down the road of self-reflection, we get the more somber Pray for Love with The Weeknd, the duo's first ever proper collaboration. This song features a heavy sampling and interpolation of Ask the Lonely by the Four Tops. This song feels like a sobering moment after getting high on drugs with the Valley Girl from the previous track. Trav and The Weeknd, still a bit intoxicated, are lamenting being on the other side of success. Travis mourns his fallen friends. He's heartbroken for the black kids who are in similar situations as he was, seeing them become statistics on the news while he's able to benefit from his success. Similarly with Abel, he admits that the hedonistic lifestyle that he proudly boasted on his past projects is unhealthy, and that its demons still follow him in fame, praying that his future daughter will never meet a man like him. Trav affirms that he needs to keep working on his craft to make sure that he can continue to support himself and his family, calling up his and Abel's crew and friends to lock in and work so that they can escape misfortune. Another amazing and heavily underrated track. After this song, we get quite a 180 in tone with Nightcrawler, with Ray Shremmer's Sway Lee and Chief Keef. This being about the halfway point in the album. Right after a song that feels like Travis and The Weeknd dealing with some level of survivor's guilt almost, Travis once more decides to indulge in his vices, going out and partying, silently acknowledging that his untamed lifestyle is potentially harming him, as he yells out that on top of the bottles and hoes that he's swimming in, he might need to get a new kidney. This track is another underrated banger that I was elated to hear him perform live. Following Nightcrawler, we would then get Piss on Your Grave, featuring Travis's mentor, the Aldi shopping man himself, Kanye West. As mentioned before on this channel, Rodeo was recorded around these same sessions as Swish that would end up becoming The Life of Pablo, and this track was allegedly traded between Yeezy and Travis. Trav getting Piss on Your Grave to put on Rodeo, and Ye getting an early version of FML, you know, the song that I never shut up about, to then be put on The Life of Pablo. This song was even originally slated to feature Paul McCartney, as him and Ye worked very closely during those early Swish sessions. During those early Swish sessions, as he worked very closely with Ye during those early Swish sessions. You know what I want to say. Whatever, I can't. I've attempted to say that sentence at least 10 times. You know what I want to say. Let's just move forward. Continuing with some of the same energy from Pray for Love, Trav and Mr. Used to Shop at Aldi's boldly and proudly state that they won't let corporate white America control them anymore, as they both vow to play by their own rules. A track very fitting on this album, and the perfect subject matter for pre-Trump glazing Kanye to be on. Once again, underrated as hell. I just sure hope that the message of this song doesn't age poorly for either of them. Following Piss on Your Grave, we then get the track that would end up becoming Travis's first major breakout hit, Antidote. As mentioned previously, this track was released on SoundCloud back in June of 2015, just a bit after the single for 3500 dropped. But the song was originally meant to be just a Lucy, not slated to actually be on Rodeo. But after seeing the success that the song achieved, Trav would have it properly mixed and mastered and successfully be placed on Rodeo. This track is another party anthem in a similar vein to Nightcrawler, where Travis asks us not to let out the antidote, strongly implied to be weed, as he continues to partake in the nightlife. This was yet again another crazy song to hear live in concert. It was more hype than hearing Fiend, in all honesty. We then get to another fan favorite and underrated track, Impossible. The tone shifts once again, with Trav calling upon a woman to ease his stress. This unknown woman is theorized to be many different real people, like Chantel Jeffries, model Katya Henry, or even Rihanna, as the two had a rumored fling during the anti-era, or even a metaphor for marijuana, but it is still a mystery. Travis laments how transactional this relationship is becoming, and also laments how drugs are influencing it. This mystery person, as it pertains to the story of the album, could be the Valley girl he was messing with in 90210, as they only seem to link up when he's on the west side. And these two also only meeting on the west side could make it plausible that he is discussing a dependency on marijuana, as recreational marijuana is illegal in his home state of Texas and was illegal in New York up until 2021, 6 years after this album had come out. Travis wishes he could do the impossible, this daunting task potentially being cutting off whatever kind of relationship this is. But as the pattern continues with this album, right after a moment of poignant self-reflection, Trav decides to abandon his troubles and continue indulging a bit more. In the following track, the cult classic, Maria I'm Drunk, with Young Thug and Justin Bieber. The first part, Maria, has Travis calling out for Maria after making it to LA. In this song, Maria is way more obviously a personification of weed. As the refrain repeats, Maria asks Travis to trust her, as she can give him the clear escape that Travis is looking for. In the extended version of Maria that was cut from the album release, Travis continues discussing how dependent he is on Maria, feeling miserable when he has to return home to Houston without her. Following this trippy transitional section, we then get to part 2, I'm Drunk. Here, the trio raps about inviting girls out for a night of fun, where they can get drunk and maybe participate in other private activities. And as problematic as this era was for Justin Gotta say, I miss it. He did his big one on this song. Can't even lie. This song's release also had an odd history. The track was initially only available to those who purchased physical copies of Rodeo or bought it digitally, and it wasn't available on streaming platforms until September 2018, a month after Astroworld's release. The exact reason for this is still unknown, but at the very least, we can enjoy this banger in all its glory now. Following Maria I'm Drunk, we get a decently fitting follow-up with Flying High, featuring Chaswick Bundick of Tora Imoa. It appears that after getting very lit on the previous track, he is now flying high. Once more, the subject matter isn't super crucial to the album's story, but makes for a nice high-energy pick-me-up song. But we are then greeted with the penultimate track on the album, I Can Tell. This track, while a bit of a tonal shift, serves as another kind of We Made It anthem, where Travis lets us know how much work it really took to achieve the success that he's finally receiving. He once more recounts how his parents were not initially approving of his dream, not seeing the vision, and how he grinded late nights back at home in Texas and LA to make this dream become a reality. The song's chorus heavily implies to us listeners that the tales he could tell about his rise to fame are truly endless, and people won't believe how much effort and work he put in to making his dreams come true. And then, fittingly, on this mood, we transition to the final track on Rodeo, Apple Pie. As the chorus states, Travis, or Jacques, more in this case, is more directly speaking to his mother and is letting her know that he doesn't want any more for apple pie. This apple pie is meant to represent the initial dreams and hopes that Miss Webster had for Jacques initially. As stated multiple times on the album, Jacques' parents were constantly at a start when it came to his music. They would constantly argue about it, not fully believing in his dream or seeing his vision, and felt that they had wasted their time and money trying to support him. But as we close out this album, Jacques makes it clear that he did in fact take his mother's advice of forming his own pathway in life, even if it wasn't the one that she or her husband were hoping for. Jacques doesn't want the life that they envisioned for him. He wants his own legacy and he wants his own recipe. And if that message wasn't made clear previously on the album, he's making it clear now. The album ends with our final narration from T.I. In this outro, Tip reminds us that the story of Jacques, now turned Scott or LaFlame, is still incomplete and is just beginning. LaFlame made the choice to jump off his mama porch, knowing that he could end up almost anywhere. He still hasn't figured everything out, but he's still trying to navigate around this new life he's made for himself. While clearly content that he has finally achieved success and the story of LaFlame can finally start, T.I. closes the album with an open-ended question. At the end of the day, will he make it? Was it worth it? Did he win? Will he survive the rodeo? The project ends in a similar vein to how it started. Travis has finally entered the rodeo of fame and success, but with that comes new adjustments to his life, which he may not fully be prepared for. Throughout this album, Travis has discussed relationship woes, his dependency on drugs and alcohol, while still rapping about the passion he has had for music and how he will continue to put that passion into everything. But still, we are left to ask, will his career last? Were the sacrifices he made stealing his parents' money and moving to LA be worth it? Will he achieve the billionaire status he aspires towards? Will he remain true to himself? Will he make it out of this rodeo unscathed? It's a question that we won't have the answer to until the day he dies. Thus, ending this legendary album on a poignant yet very triumphant and proud note. The experience that is Rodeo was something so very special. This album very much felt like a labor of love and passion for his craft, and stands tall as a reminder to the world at large, and for Travis himself, that he will let his ambition carry him along as he continues to navigate the rodeo. The album does admittedly get a bit weak towards the end in terms of pacing, and some of the themes do feel a bit out of place on the track list, but still, Travis really did his big one with Rodeo. It astonishes me that many album reviewers at the time thought that this album was too derivative of Kanye, Cudi, and other influences of Travis. He made an incredibly unique sounding project that paid tribute to his origins as a Texan and was a foundational piece in defining the sound he's had over the past decade. Even one of the music world's biggest haters, Anthony Fantano, gave the album an 8, despite giving Days Before Rodeo a 3 and saying that Drugs You Should Try It was the worst song on that tape. Insane take, by the way. As corny of a quote as the whole follow your dreams shtick is, this project is living proof of that. Travis was just shy of 21 when he got the opportunity to produce for one of the most critically acclaimed and lauded rappers of all time. And he was just 24 when this album dropped. He is around my age when this stuff started to happen for him. His ambition was able to carry him to stardom, and he was finally able to reap the benefits of all his hard work. This album will truly go down as one of the greatest triumphs in rap of this generation. The success of the Rodeo album brought Travis to amazing new heights. He would follow the album's release almost immediately with a mini tour dubbed the Days After Rodeo Tour, with Trav having 7 dates between his hometown of Houston, Texas, New York City, and some venues in California, and would later go on to be an opener for Rihanna's Anti-World Tour. The album peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200, only being taken over by Got Your Six by Five Finger Death Punch at number 2 and Beauty Behind the Madness at number 1. For a newcomer, being within the top 3 of one of the biggest albums of 2015 and just the 2010s in general is a very solid entrance into the mainstream. As I've said before, the initial critical reception of the project was decently mixed. The reviews were generally positive, but many reviewers believe that the album stood more as a good proof of concept and felt that Travis was just shy of reaching his potential. Still, since that point though, in modern times, reviewers are a lot more kinder to this album and are willing to give it the flowers it deserves. Still, the album trekked on with the hit Antidote, continuing to push that album's success, and even that song peaking at number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100, and by the end of the year, going 2 times platinum. After having a successful winter, Travis would enter 2016 already announcing that 2 new albums were in the works. The first being titled Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight, and the second one, coming afterward, was titled Astroworld. In a Billboard interview, he would explain the reasoning for the Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight title, stating that Birds in the Trap was, quote, basically about all my friends and growing up here in Missouri City. I'm not saying it's a trap, we not in the fucking projects, but it's like a social trap. It's a social connection trap from what you want to do and how you want to express yourself. I feel like everyone just gets constricted by their parents or just life. With this project, Trav wanted to continue with Rodeo's themes of finding one's own pathway in life and rejecting the status quo. And the first songs to come out during this era would be a double release of the Lucy A-Team along with Wonderful featuring The Weeknd. The only other notable single that dropped before the project's release would be Pick Up the Phone with Young Thug and Quavo. Following a couple months delay, we would finally get Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight on September 2nd, 2016. This album became one of the first major W's for Travis. This project would be his first to reach number 1 on the Billboard 200, a streak he has not since broken. And it would house tracks that are now considered classics in his discography, like Biebs in the Trap with 2016 N-word saying Nav, SDP interlude with Cassie, allegedly swapped with Rihanna after a supposed breakup between the two, the aforementioned Pick Up the Phone, and of course, Travis' biggest song to date, the 17 times platinum hit, Goosebumps with Kendrick Lamar. The album's sound leaned way more into this psychedelic, drug-fueled trap sound, more clearly present on tracks like SDP Interlude and Goosebumps, albeit with a much darker tone than Rodeo, and is commonly seen as another stepping stone towards his next project. Reviewers were a bit kinder to this album, believing that it was a small yet welcome improvement over Rodeo, but nowadays, this album is somewhat the universal black sheep of Travis's discography. Now look, the album was not terrible, don't get me wrong, but it felt like quite a downgrade. While I hate to agree with the Melon, Birds in the Trap felt like a Rodeo B-sides tape with an admittedly darker tone. The production is technically a step up from Rodeo, but what Rodeo reportedly lacked in production, it was made up for with substance in the themes and narratives that carried the album. Birds felt like an unorganized mess with some admittedly fun tracks. On their own, these songs are enjoyable, some more than others obviously, but feels incredibly incohesive as a project. Still, Travis scored an undeniable hit album with Birds and successfully cultivated intense hype for his next solo project. Following the success of Birds, fans would have to wait nearly 2 years for his next solo project. During 2017, Travis would go on an iconic feature run, being present on tracks like Kelly Price with the Migos, Ghostface Killers with Metro Boomin, 21 Savage, and Offset, Portland with Drake and Quavo, and speaking of Quavo, would drop a collab tape with him, Huncho Jack Huncho, that year as well, along with dropping Astroworld's first and only single before release, Butterfly Effect, one of the only non-explicit Travis Scott songs ever made, as well as the throwaway song Watch with Lil Uzi Vert and Kanye West in 2018. Given the near 2-year gap between projects, when the end of July 2018 came around, the project was given a proper release date of August 3rd, and hype was at an all-time high. Both Travis and his fans knew that this would be an incredibly important album for him, and he was working on it even up until the release, which explains certain mixing issues on certain songs. Would Astroworld pull Travis to new heights? Will it allow people to take him more seriously in the music industry? Will this top the success of his previous projects tenfold? On August 3rd, 2018, those questions were answered with an astounding yes. Astroworld became Travis's second consecutive #1 album and would house other hits and classics, such as the aforementioned Butterfly Effect, Stargazing, Stop Trying to Be God with Kid Cudi, James Blake, Stevie Wonder, and Philip Bailey, Yosemite with Gunna and Nav, Can't Say with Don Toliver, and of course the 16 times platinum hit, Sicko Mode with everyone's favorite light-skinned stud, Drake. This project dominated 2018 and 19. The project derived its title from the defunct Six Flags Astroworld in Trav's hometown, which closed down in 2005 when he would have been around 14 years old. The sound of Astroworld, as Travis describes it, was a mix of the psychedelic trap sound he pioneered with Rodeo and Birds, a mix of childhood wonder and nostalgia. Travis described it himself as taking an amusement park away from kids, feeling as though this place of joy and amusement was slipping away or being taken, just like how the actual Astroworld Park was taken down to make space for apartments. He considers this album to be a true successor to Rodeo, and it definitely lives up to that title. This album boasted production and instrumentation from the likes of the aforementioned legendary Stevie Wonder, James Blake, Pharrell Williams, Kevin Parker of Tame Impala, Thundercat, John Mayer, Mike Dean, and so many more. There is not a cohesive narrative as there was with Rodeo. Travis created a project that perfected the sound that he cultivated on Rodeo. Front to back, the album is an incredibly fun and trippy listen. Going from tracks like Sicko Mode to Rip Screw, from No Bystanders to Skeletons, and then ending the album on a poignant self-reflection on the fate of his firstborn child and his potential love life with Coffee Bean. This project was amazing. Like, no hate to Cardi B. I think Travis fans and rap fans in general, they give her a hard time, mainly for one major reason. It's still a shame that Trav didn't win Best Rap Album at the Grammys for this one. If any project deserved it, Astroworld was definitely up there. The Astroworld Era would go on until 2021. This era would be filled with some of Travis's most iconic performances, like at 2018's Governor's Ball, viral singles like 2019's Highest in the Room, following Travis's first breakup with Kylie Jenner, his feature run on tracks like The London and Hot with Young Thug, Turks with Gunna, and again, in the successful tracks on the first ever Jackboys compilation tape, like Out West with Young Thug and Gotti with the late Pop Smoke. One of the only times where it was universally agreed that Travis got washed. Before the initial Astroworld tour, he would start hosting the annual Astroworld Festival starting in 2018, continuing in 2019, postponed in 2020 for very obvious reasons, and then returning again in 2021, following the teaser and announcement of his next project that would be titled Utopia. But the 2021 festival would force Travis to end this era abruptly, following the tragedy that would ensue. I imagine that if you're watching this video, you are at least somewhat aware of the Astroworld tragedy, so I will keep this brief. But due to a mix of poor planning, overcrowding, and issues with crowd control, with most blame being put on the event organizers, Live Nation, the first night of the 2021 Astroworld Festival would end in tragedy, as 10 people, including a 9-year-old child, would die at the concert, and hundreds others would be injured after experiencing crowd crush. Travis tried to stop the show when he could see danger, but other cries made directly to event staff were not answered. The magnitude of this incident also brought some of Travis's previously unrecognized recklessness at his past shows to light, where there are moments of Travis encouraging his fans to do reckless and dangerous things, like hopping barricades, attacking certain concert goers he didn't like, and even bringing up previously sidelined stories of how someone got paralyzed during the Astroworld tour, and Travis's former manager coming out of the woodwork to allege that he was a very shitty person to work with, a sentiment that is rumored to be very present among the music industry today even, and reportedly leaving him for dead after he had a seizure, with Trav firing him the next day. All of these stories combined obviously made Travis look terrible. Day 2 show was definitively canceled, and Travis became public enemy #1 for the rest of 2021, and for fair reason. As a fan of the guy, it's hard for me to not exhibit some level of fan bias when talking about him, and I want to believe that Travis did all he could during his performance to aid his fans and concert goers, and was genuinely oblivious to the horrors that were going down deep in the crowd. But something that I can immediately criticize is some of his and Live Nation's initial reactions to the event. Those infamous IG stories are so embarrassing and disappointing to look back on. Even if it wasn't intentional, Trav made it seem like the whole situation was way more of an inconvenience for him rather than a ginormous tragedy. There's a reason why people were making fun of and parodying that response. He should have really just let that official statement he put out speak for itself. Plus, he and Live Nation offering 1 month free trials to BetterHelp online therapy to victims and their families felt like the biggest slap in the face possible. Hey guys, sorry that the concert that I poorly planned turned into this hellish night of trauma that you'll never escape for the rest of your life. As consolation, here's a 1 month free trial to one of the most universally panned online therapy services on the face of the planet. It's lit. Calling this shit a PR nightmare would be describing it lightly. This tragedy halted many plans that Trav had in motion around this time. And to understand that, I think it's important to make a small detour into the business world of Travis Scott. Following the initial success of the Birds album, Travis started gaining major business opportunities. One of the first and most notable was the founding of Cactus Jack Records in a joint venture with his parent label Sony in 2017. While Cactus Jack was founded in 2017, in 2018, it would sign its first 2 major artists, Sheck West in a joint venture with Good Music, coming off of the success of Mo Bamba, and later signing Don Toliver, who after being a nearly complete unknown, coincidentally a day before Astroworld drops, would release his debut mixtape, Donnie Womack, and is then featured on Astroworld in what is commonly considered his breakout song, Can't Say, and is later revealed to be a signee to Cactus Jack 3 days later. Interesting. No hate to Don though, that man be cooking. He has also since started a long-running partnership with Nike, no pun intended, with some of his most notable pieces being the Sail Air Force Ones, the Reverse Mocha Air Jordan Ones, and the Cactus Jack Air Force Ones. Famously gifted to Offset of the Migos, who had a very excited reaction to seeing the gift in person. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about editing it and putting it next to me right now, and it's still just like, they're just shoes, man. They're just shoes. I don't know what invokes that kind of reaction to shoes. Then in 2020, we would get some of Travis's more well-known collabs, like the dreaded McDonald's meal, which I was fortunately able to purchase back in the day. Trav being the first person to have a nationwide celebrity meal in the company's history. Still, I pray for the poor McDonald's workers that had to not only work during 2020, but work during that month of September during that collab. Oh, those poor people. I'm sure sicko mode triggers like a trauma response in their heads now. He would also collaborate with Fortnite, doing the game's astronomical event, with players being able to earn in-game items and purchase Travis Scott related goodies in the game. All with the major climax of the live astronomical in-game event, where Travis and Kid Cudi would debut their single for their since scrapped collaboration duo, The Scotts. Another surprisingly pivotal moment in pop culture, as this was where the guy from Fortnite term was really popularized, and unfortunately is a very extremely accurate way of describing people now, as Fortnite is legitimately some of the ways that younger people have found out about Travis and other celebrities and franchises that have since collabed with Epic Games. I can complain about how ridiculous all of this is and how this all there's some deeper lying message about how bad capitalism is under all of this, but at the same time, I bought the entire SpongeBob bundle. Don't look at me like that, okay? This right here, this is 10-year-old Will's wet dream, okay? I had to. He also started selling his own brand of spiked seltzer, Cacti, continuing with the whole Cactus Jack theme, in the spring of 2021. All this to say, he was clearly invested in reaching that billionaire status. Even though he started a lot of these large business ventures, his music at the time was of an incredibly beloved and respectable quality, though it was becoming clear slowly that the persona of Travis Scott started to become a bit more of a brand than a musical identity. And I believe that shift started to become more apparent with the release of the franchise music video. Of course, it's common for music videos to have some level of product placement, but it it was the first time we saw Travis teasing or advertising a new product in such a fashion, with an at the time unreleased product, going so far as to make it a bar in the song. But a lot of this momentum halted when the incident happened. Fortnite would temporarily remove him from the item shop. The parent company that owns Cacti Seltzer would stop selling it for a little bit. I mean, shit was really bad for him. And why wouldn't it be? Outside of the sheer tragedy that unfolded that night, again, this was clearly a PR nightmare for Travis, one that he is still fighting to this day, albeit a bit more silently. This event, I believe, has pushed Travis into more of a corner when it comes to his behavior now. And the first sign of that was the reworking of the release of Utopia. The album's title was initially teased by Travis in a letter in July of 2020, and he had started recording in 2019. I don't want to dive into all the leak and snippet history here since that isn't the point of the video, but it's worth mentioning how much of a change in sound the project went through. Some leaks and snippets from around 2019 had the project sounding kind of like an Astroworld Part 2, or an Astroworld with new attractions, so to speak. Tracks like Schizo with Young Thug were recorded back in 2019 initially. He had also been rumored to be working closely with experimental artists like Kevin Parker of Tame Impala and Yves Tumor, with Trav even saying in an early interview that his next project would feature elements of psychedelic rock, the exact type of things that Kevin Parker is known for. Other rumors even suggested that Utopia was conceived as a double album, with side A being Dystopia, teased with that 2-pack of singles that we got the day of the Astroworld tragedy, and side B being the proper Utopia project. But the tragedy seemed to put a halt on these plans, and for fair reason. Events he was meant to perform at were either canceled or postponed, and some of the artists that he was rumored to be working with slowly distanced themselves from Travis. Up until around mid-2022, he tried his best to stay out of the public eye and reshape his image. And though things are better for him now, he has never truly recovered. Now that the Astrofest tragedy is associated with that era, it puts a permanent scar on what was otherwise his prime. I fully believe that if Trav were to come out and try to do some kind of 10-year anniversary celebration in 2028, he could face some level of scrutiny for it, for real. And this is where I get back to my main point here. At this very pivotal moment of his career, the brand of Travis Scott was at risk. This incident even forced him to stop acknowledging the Astroworld Era since then to avoid opening up this can of worms once more. And that's when you realize how much of an impact this tragedy had. Because beforehand, if this super experimental shift that he was planning to make didn't really work out with fans, he could easily bounce back on the success of his previous album. But if he comes back now from multiple album delays and a ginormous fatal tragedy with something that not even critics or fans are willing to defend, his career would be in bad shape, and it would be increasingly difficult to recover from. Henceforth, Utopia's future sound would shift to be a bit more safe while still being experimental, and Travis would start to move a bit more carefully to slowly win back favor in the public eye. And speaking of which, after an alleged 2-year delay, we would finally get Utopia in July of 2023. Even though Travis was forced to somewhat play it safe with this album, he still managed to make a high-energy, trippy-sounding, unique project. The album included beloved hits like Fiend with Playboi Carti, I Know, K-pop with Bad Bunny and The Weeknd, and Telekinesis with Future and SZA. The project was generally positively received, but many did point out that it did feel like a step down from Astroworld. And with many, myself included, calling out the familiarity with this album's sound. Said familiarity being that this is very much Travis's attempt at making his own version of Yeezus. No less 10 years after Yeezus' release. I've mentioned this on the channel before, but 3 songs on Utopia were initially Kanye West songs made during the early Donda sessions, including Telekinesis. That song in particular creating an ongoing legal battle with its original writer, Victory Boyd, as the track was initially conceived as a gospel song and then turned into a song about failed relationships and side bitches. And even Modern Jam with Tizo Touchdown is literally an early version of I Am a God. Don't get me wrong, I like Yeezus, and that's probably the reason why I low-key prefer Utopia more than Astroworld, but still, around this time, I see why reviewers and others thought that it was a bit derivative. Still, the project went on to be massively popular, with it being the highest selling rap album of 2023 and even snagging a Grammy nomination. Since the success of Utopia, things for Travis have more or less turned back to normal in terms of public perception. But still, the play it safe attitude that Travis has had to adapt to has become more and more present when looking into his recent business dealings. The biggest example has been the release and promotion of some of his recent works. Starting with Utopia, different versions of the album were sold in bundles, a common tactic Travis and other artists used to boost sales, but it took a long time for people to actually get them. Some people not getting their copies of Utopia until apparently this past year, December of this past year. An album that came out 2 years ago just arrived in some people's mailboxes, and in some cases they had to fight to get it. And the obvious reason for this lack of care was in an effort to boost sales. A lot of his business decisions recently have been made way more based on what makes the most money, and it really does show. Remember in 2024 when Days Before Rodeo finally made it to streaming and him and Sabrina Carpenter were fighting for the #1 spot? Well, after the initial first week didn't go well and Days Before Rodeo would only make it to #2 because of course it did. It's a re-release of an old mixtape and it's Sabrina Carpenter. Travis would then swoop in the second week and take the #1 spot from Sabrina. But again, just for a week before it disappeared off the album charts, just like 4x4 did. This man sold 5 different versions of the same mixtape, with each one just having a separate new bonus track attached to it. The same strategy used when Kanye was trying to boost sales for Vultures 2. If we are copying a release strategy used for Vultures 2, oh my god, we've lost the plot. We genuinely lost the plot. Even again, just this past year with the release of Jackboys 2, people on Reddit were reporting how their packages were lost, how they received a cut version of the project that they paid full price for, another tactic used to boost sales as 7 tracks is the minimum for it to count towards an album sale, or they still haven't received the album, despite it coming out in July of 2025, nearly 6 months from when I'm recording this video and when it will release. It's clear that no real care has been taken in the release of these albums because all Travis and his team cares about is seeing that sales number go up. Because even if the fans don't have the product shipped to their house, it still counts as a sale. So at that point, Travis doesn't need to give a fuck. I would highly recommend watching Geek About It's video on this very topic as he touches a bit more ground on this subject, a bit more than I can here. Watch me first, please. But in general, a Travis Scott release has not felt that special in a long time. As much as I hate to agree with the Aldi man, especially given how much the following line that I'm referencing has aged quite poorly for both him and Travis, he had a point. He had a point. There does not seem to be any real creative direction with any of the brand partnerships that Travis is making. It really is just in pursuit of more money. What I can give Kanye credit for, initially in the script I wrote that things aren't looking too good for him right now. Apparently he's been on this big healing journey and improving himself. He apologized to a rabbi. He spent Christmas and New Year's with Kim and the kids. I've said my piece. If he's serious about it, I'm more than happy to see improvement, but I'll believe it when I see it. Though Kanye isn't as loved as he used to be, after initially starting with those big brand partnerships, he has since decided to run his own fashion line independently. And all of his creative ventures outside of music all felt genuinely made with purpose. I mean, the dude literally took months off of making music to go study fashion with his former friend, the late Virgil Abloh, before taking his pursuit into fashion more seriously. But Travis, on the other hand, is more than happy to slap his box braids on whatever pays him the most. And it's clear that his pursuit of the bag has made his actual music and creativity fall to the wayside. As many have pointed out, Travis's musical releases since Astroworld have continuously been surrounded by this aura of spectacle. And in some cases, it's felt welcome. I mean, I like the Circus Maximus movie, for example. Although there are many reasons to criticize it, like for example how in the version that was available in films on the day of Utopia's release, you can actively hear Travis giving his producers stage directions. It was still a fun addition to the release of this long-anticipated album. Having a massive spectacle isn't inherently a bad thing, but the base product is what matters here. Since Utopia, a lot of his music output and his rollouts feel incredibly formulaic. As previously mentioned, during the time between Birds and the peak of the Astroworld Era, Travis Scott features were something that people were genuinely excited for, but now he's been given the unfortunate label of a court-mandated feature. And that title feels especially relevant after the release of Jackboys 2. Now look, I'll be real. The last time I listened to the project, not even in full, was when I was in the hospital suffering earlier this year. So maybe before I put this video out, I should give it one more spin in all fairness. Though I do remember that I enjoyed Let God Sort Him Out a bit more, but that's neither here nor there. But still, that project came and went and was even less popular than its predecessor. Again, hearing the album, it's not offensively bad or anything, but it is painfully average with small highlights here and there. It really does feel like Travis Scott's actual music has become an afterthought. And that brings me to why I cherish Rodeo so much. Looking back at the 10 years since this project has unfortunately made me see how much Travis has shifted from his original vision. Once more, as stereotypical as the whole make your own pathway and follow your dreams thing is, that message was the core of that album and the core of Travis's early career in general. This 24-year-old guy made the risky move of abandoning the regular life his parents had envisioned for him, was homeless and couch surfed for a while, was cut off from his family, and was given the 1 in a million chance to work with some of his idols and contribute to some of the most beloved pieces of modern music, and was able to make a name for himself in the process. But has since then kind of turned himself into the Taylor Swift of trap music, where, the fan base is still there and is very powerful, but over time, the creativity and the passion behind each project seems to slowly be diminishing. It's so disappointing to see this shift right now because, in theory, Travis could make an effort if he wanted to now. In terms of public perception, people have more or less moved on past the Astroworld tragedy. Don't get it twisted. I still believe that him, Live Nation, and the other people who were responsible for the shit that went down that night deserve to be held accountable. And as I said before, there are still active legal proceedings going on in that case. But still, he has put himself back into a position where he could try to experiment again. No one expects Travis Scott to be a Kanye West, pre-Nazi shit, or a Kid Cudi, but Travis used to be considered a standout artist. There are other ways he could innovate. One of his close peers and collaborators, for example, Playboi Carti, is a great example of this. I love the man's music, but I'm not going to the dude for deep, lyrical, philosophical conversation. Yet, Carti is hailed as a modern-day innovator in rap music, as each of his projects continue to grow and evolve in style and sound. As with Carti's unconventional sense of fashion and brand. That's the kind of influence that Travis could achieve if he makes the effort to do so. But similarly, as I've pointed out with Drake, when put in such a comfortable position where all you need to do to get a check is release songs that sound like half-baked Astroworld throwaways, why would he really bother? And that's the sad and near inevitable part about becoming an artist. Becoming corporatized or becoming a brand. The brand of Travis Scott has consumed the life of the artist, Travis Scott. It seems that he has forgotten one of the major lessons that his mentor tried to pass on to him, albeit not in the greatest way, which is that as a creative, especially as a black creative, it is important to move with intent and to forge your own path. That's literally what Piss on Your Grave was about. And it seems like Travis is happy continuously shaking hands with the same type of people who wouldn't have given him a chance to start with. Once more, Kanye's path to his current independence is far from perfect, but for a small moment in 2014, he was able to make his own decisions and took true independence like a champ. Vulture's One peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200, did great numbers, had a number 1 hit, his products were selling, and all with no middleman involved. That's the kind of success that Travis could be looking at. Granted, he puts the work in and makes steps towards those changes, but that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon. Ironically, I feel like the Rodeo action figure that became the face of Travis's brand and is still his profile picture on Instagram and Twitter is somehow symbolic of what he has turned into now. He has happily turned himself into a product. Given the overarching message of Rodeo, that's quite a sad thing to see. All I can hope is that in the future, Travis will hear the criticisms of his fans and critics and realize that moving forward, he needs to lock in creatively to earn that respect and trust back from his fans. And also, maybe, treat his fans like real people and not moving dollar signs. Seriously, again, 2 years to get an album you bought 2 years ago. That shit is genuinely crazy. And again, it's not even just like, it's indefinite delays. People had to outwardly contact support to know where their albums were. This is crazy.
Who's running this army?
But as I reach my conclusion today, I do hope that for any of you watching this video, that you take away this. The Rodeo album and everything that I've talked about has made it clear the importance of creating your own pathway in life. As we all try to find our way through our own rodeos, you have to remember that you are in control of your ending, and that you shouldn't let outside forces stop you from taking the path that you want to take, and that it is imperative that you stay true to yourself in the process. I am really bad at outros, but I do want to briefly explain where I've been for the past 5 to 6 months. Like I said earlier, after that hospital video, I was fine. I think I left maybe 2 or 3 days after I recorded it, in fact. But as I mentioned in that video, I had been working towards creating these 2 new video projects in a similar vein to No One Wants to Follow to Heaven. But I made the difficult decision to push them until next year, as I felt that trying to rush them out, especially when I did not have even a cent of the amount of money to make it, would have ended up in me making something that I would not be proud of. And the trap that I fell into after delaying those projects was I was originally going to do what I did the last time. When I made No One Wants to Follow to Heaven, or when I started working on it, I pushed back every other video idea I had because I felt that I needed to finish that project first, thus leading to me not uploading a single video in 2023. And that's something I want to avoid happening again. Getting past that writer's block was a big thing. And on top of that, if it isn't obvious, I've moved. I moved to a new city for school, and adjusting to the French education system has been interesting, to say the very least. French people are interesting. I'll just leave it at that. They are very, very, very interesting people. And yeah, trying to find a healthy balance between doing well in school and my videos has been hard, because at the end of the day, as much as I love what I do, getting my degree and finally not having to live with my parents is the main priority. But I do think I've come close to finding that balance. And after all of this, I do want to say thank you to all of you who have been patiently waiting for my return. And I do apologize for not giving proper updates and things afterward. Leaving on such a cliffhanger like that is very shitty, and I am sorry. Last year, I ended 2024 believing that 2025 was going to be the big year where I'd get the projects done, I'd hit 10K subs, and after starting the year off with 3,000 subscribers, I am now currently entered 2026 with 3,952. So close to 1,000 more, but not exactly what I was anticipating. Still, I'm very happy and grateful for those who came along for the ride this year. But I will say, 2026, the goal is to come in full throttle, baby. I'm telling you, I have been working so hard on these 2 video projects, and I have a lot of video ideas already planned for just the next 4 months. I mean, like, I'm sure some of you have seen the news. A certain pink-suited gentleman is going to drop something next week or next month, and you know I'm going to be there. But even if videos won't be super consistent, I'm doing my best to try and find a schedule, and all I can do is promise to you guys that I will come out with the best videos that I possibly can. And before I do forget as well, I completely forgot to do some recording, and I'm sorry. But as I said in that hospital video, moving forward, any kind of donations or anything, I will happily read out loud at the end of the next video. So since that was posted on the Ko-Fi, we got comments from Milo, who says, "Emotional shotties in this bit, Machiavelli." Thank you, Milo. I don't know what that means, but then we have simply the Stonehenge emoji saying, "Like the Pablo video, hope you reach the goal. Thank you." And for our last one, we have Keeping It Cozy saying, "Thanks. And thank you." Seriously, guys, I do appreciate the support. If you feel so inclined, you can leave a super chat on this video, or you can go to the Ko-Fi that is linked on the Legendary website. It should be top of the description. But if not, that is totally fine. You watching the videos is support enough, truly. So I guess to wrap up, to you watching this video, I wish you and your family a happy new year. And I hope to see you in the next video, which hopefully might come a bit sooner than you think. Are you still recording? Yes. Oh, we did it. 2026 might be off to a good start, baby. Let's go. All right.